Hello, I'm Paul Karem with Above the Fray, and today as my guest I have the honor of having Wilbur Hackett, former teammate of mine at the University of Kentucky. Wilbur is the first African American captain of a Southeastern Conference athletic team of any sport. He and three other of our teammates, Houston Hall, Greg Page, and Nate Northington, are the first blacks to play football in the Southeastern Conference. University of Kentucky has, after a long wait, finally decided to honor these men, if you can look at the front page of this newspaper, with statues outside the football stadium at the University of Kentucky. Wilbur is a remarkable human being, and when we talk about obstacles, what we're faced with today is really pales in comparison when you think about what this man and our teammates went through. And Wilbur, in 1968, we played the University of Mississippi in Jackson, Mississippi, in a night game on the same field a couple years after the then governor of Mississippi, Ross Barnett, told a cheering throng that Mississippi would never be integrated. You remember that evening?
Like it was yesterday, I do. It was an eventful night, a historical night, and my first time in the South, in the deep South, and my first time playing football out of the state of Kentucky, and my first out of the state college football game. So yeah, it was quite a night.
Not only were you the defensive captain as a sophomore for the Kentucky Wildcats, you, our other teammate Houston Hogg, your dad and your dad's buddy, if we recall correctly, were the only African Americans in the entire stadium, 60,000 people. I would suggest that you may have been on the unsafest ground of any American athlete on American turf ever.
There was a lot of hostility, and it was very evident. And even the state troopers who were there supposedly to protect us were harassing us. So when you looked at the crowd, it was an angry crowd, a lynch mob mentality crowd. And then you had the state troopers that were calling us different names and Leroy and making up stuff. And it's quite interesting, but you know, it was a football game, and I was there to play football, and that's what we did.
And so once the game started, the football part of it took all this out of your head?
It's game on. Game on. You know, getting there was the tough part. Once we got there, once going through all the things that we knew that could possibly happen, and the things that were in the news and things that we knew about happening in the South, in the deep South, that was the tough part. Once we got there, it was a football
Not
game.
only are you the first African American captain of an SEC athletic team, you're the first African American to set foot on that field. And it didn't help that you had Wilbur Hackett Sr. in the stands. I know that.
Well, actually, he was on the sideline. I don't think they let him sit in the stands. So he was on the sideline, actually, down from us, not on the bench, but on the sideline. So I don't think he wanted to be in the stand.
So these statues that have been built of you, that are remarkable, gorgeous bronze statues,
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel about this at a time when statues are being taken down for the opposite reasons that these statues went up?
Well, first of all, Paul, I never even dreamed that something like this would happen. I certainly want to thank you and the University of Kentucky for making this possible. But I never thought that this would happen, because it was something that never entered my mind. But in terms of statues, when you think of what they represent, or what the statues were erected for at the University of Kentucky, what we represented, that change that took place, the integrating of the SEC, the historical, that historical event happening, and again, we never thought about it being a history-making step, but we're grateful that the university thought enough of us to erect the statue.
Well, we've talked a number of times about you have a hard time not connecting the dots here to a real accomplishment in integration.
Right.
Because I think we can sit here and say politicians couldn't do it, social engineering couldn't do it, teachers tried like hell, maybe they couldn't do it, buses couldn't do it. As much as anything, sports did it. And as much as any sport, football did it. Would you agree with that?
100%, and you know the place that football has in the SEC and in the South. And when you think of change and making a change, you said it. I mean, the most integrated place on Saturday afternoons in the South is a football game. So I was certainly very grateful and humbled to be a part of such something that has changed the direction of our country when it did, when the SEC was integrated.
And I notice a lot of SEC stories, and they should happen, that are claiming pieces of this, like Conridge Holloway being the first African-American quarterback, and I watched something about George Rogers in South Carolina. But you guys were way before. We're talking about Nate and Greg signing letters of intent. As a matter of fact, before the game, Kentucky and Texas Western, the historic basketball game, all white against all black, they actually signed their letters of intent before that game was played. So we've got to make a serious tip of the hat, not only to your courage, but for the University of Kentucky breaking the ground on this.
So it was a major step, and as I look back, the University of Kentucky making that step was not easy. I recently read and seen some things about the other schools in SEC were talking about kicking or banning Kentucky if they integrate out of the conference, run them out of the conference. So this is a major step and certainly a courageous step on.
So you waited 50 years for these statues to come up. 50 years. But you and your teammates, from the same resource that you have, this incredible amount of courage and guts, from that same resource came your patience and complete disinterest in being recognized for 50 years.
You know, Paul, when we, and I speak for my other teammates, Nate, Greg, and Houston, we didn't go to UK or go play football in the SEC for the recognition. We went for the same reason you went. We were athletes, we wanted to get an education, and we wanted to play football. That's what it was all about. I had no idea of the historical implications then. Maybe Nate might have, because Governor Breathitt asked him to be the first African American to sign. But when I came, when I was on being recruited by UK, it was just to play football at college, and so I never thought of the historical.
So your teammates elected you captain, and I'm only going to ask you this question because people want to hear a different answer. But were you ever subjected to? Do you feel like your teammates were your brothers, or did you feel like there was some starch there?
You know, Paul, a team that plays together, stays together, plays together and stays together. It was. I never had any. I mean, there were some players that weren't used to playing with African Americans, but a team is one. So and that's what football has done for me, and that's what it's done for me my whole life. If we didn't protect one another, if we didn't take care of one another, who else was going to do it? It's like being in a foxhole. Right. You know, you're going to have guys that are going to got your back, and you got their back. And that's what it was all about. We were a team. All the other things going on around us, it never, certainly we were affected by it outside of football, but when it came to being on that football team, we played football, and we took care, and we cared for one another. In the practice, in the mat room, in the preseason, we were a team, and that's what it was all about.
And the style of Coach Bradshaw was so tough. That's, I guess, almost a distraction in some way. But there is a cleansing element to football. All of the nonsense and the value of a word, or the value of being so close to guys and living with them and going through the highest highs and the lowest lows, makes differences just go away.
Well, I can sum it up like simple as this. You and I are friends today because of the relationship that we developed back in 1968 when we came to UK. And that's pretty much, that sums it up. Our relationship has grown over the years, but it started as teammates in UK. That's not going to change.
That's a great thing about football. So hope you enjoyed this. And Paul Karem with Above the Fray, please visit our website. And what an honor to have a remarkable man, an American hero, Wilbur Hackett.
Thank you.